Hey, good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast here with me. Good sunny day out there. We're going to get started here in just a second with Treasury FY23 budget overview, specifically for government contractors. And as we go along, I just want you to understand that the direction I'm coming from explaining the Treasury's budget, and anytime I talk about a budget, it's from a salesperson's perspective. As a business developer or capture person, when I look at the Treasury's budget, what do I see in it? How do I interpret it to meet my business development and capture needs, my sales needs? And you can contrast that with somebody who's providing more just statistical type information, explaining the budget at a pure dollars and cents type thing or something. I really want to dive in and go, if I was a salesperson going into the Treasury, what would I do? And so as I show you stuff today, you're going to see it skewed towards my natural way of thinking of a budget. I'll look in there and I'll see ideas for what I can research. I'll definitely be seeing things faster that are IT or professional services. I do try to cover a little construction today, just as an example, but you know, I skewed more to what I know. But the point of today's training is to give you an overview of the Treasury's budget for 2023. But also give you tips that I think you can take to go after the agency of your choice and really dive deep. If you don't know this, I am doing 10 of these in a row. So Treasury today, I think I got Army tomorrow, Navy the next day, Air Force the next day, Department of Veterans Affairs, and going into the week after, got Commerce, Transportation, HHS, Department of Energy, and somebody else that I'm forgetting, and I can't remember who it is, some really important agency. But anyway, so 10 in a row. If you haven't looked at our newsletter article that just lists out all past replays as well as the next 10 that are coming out, take a look at that. Sign up for them. Okay, so if you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I do these daily LinkedIn Lives every single day, business day, to bring you tips and process and procedures for you to achieve success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process, we achieve the outcome and the results we expect. We have predictable success. And so that's why I drive this forward. One last thing before we get started diving in, not DOJ, but I can't remember who it was. And by the way, I don't look at chat too much, especially when I share my screen. I'm just fully immersed. But that's one thing I do want you to do, is put your company name and your core competency into the chat. In particular, with today, if we happen to have Treasury personnel come along later, small business professionals looking in, they'll see your company name and your core competency in the chat. It's part of the process to getting people to know, like, and trust you. So put that in the chat, your company name in 2 or 3 words with your core competency. Engage in the chat. This is your community, the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. We put this together. We exist to bring all small businesses together. And that community is just one way that we're able to offer it to you. Okay, I'm going to come at you with a fire hose. I got like 40 or 50 notes to guide what I'm talking about. You're going to see me looking down there. But I'm going to share my screen and dive in. If you've got questions as we go along, I might not be able to answer them now, but definitely put them into the chat. If you like something you see, mention that. Otherwise, if you have questions, put them in the chat. And after, I'll come back and try to answer all of them. Not try to answer them. I'll answer them all, but I'll try to successfully answer all of them. Like, if you ask me a really hard question, that might be tough. Okay, so let me share my screen. Whoa. Okay, so we're going to dive into the Treasury and going into the budget. I just wanted to start with this screen here because that's such a prettier page than the actual budget, which starts off with this page, and then it goes down into, the next pages, which are all kind of pretty boring. Okay, so we're going to dive in, and I've got highlighted sections throughout. And you're going to see me jump through the pages. I'm going to basically be jumping back and forth on what's in here and telling you my thoughts on it. And I've got 4 supporting documents I want to tell you about that come out of this process. So let me just come into this part here, right? As I'm coming down, there's certain things that pop out. I want to share my thoughts with you on them so that you can actually begin to see how I think about it, and you might be able to do something similar. So the first thing I see, just little things that pop up, right, is that this budget's aligning to the department's long-term goals and objectives as described in the plan. I'm like, okay, what's the plan? Let me make sure I have the plan, right? So here I've got the plan open. I've downloaded it, and I'll go through these 60 pages. If I really want to sell to the Department of Treasury and make millions a year for my company, or bring in millions a year for my company from the Treasury contracts I win, well, then take the time to read 60 pages, right? So that's the first thing. The next thing I'm looking at is that the budget is $14 billion, right? But some of the things that really pop up to me is reducing the paper inventory backlog. That's a challenge. That's a problem I want to track on. Improving telephone and in-person services. Well, let's say my company does call centers or help desk, right? I'm beginning to see right in the second paragraph that I can see challenges I might be able to help, right? Facilitating better processing of the tax returns, accelerating the development of digital tools. So if you're in your software development or in IT or digital modernization, digital transformation, then they're speaking to you right in this first paragraph. And that's what I see. This next paragraph on this page, they're providing $215 million to address cybersecurity risk in establishing zero trust architecture. So any of you companies out there who are in that cyberspace, this should pop to you. For me, it does, right? I push my customers on getting on the zero trust tail. Zero trust is just a buzzword. Yes, it's a thing, but it's a buzzword that all of federal agencies are tracking on. And right here, now in their head, they're tracking 200 million to zero trust and to other cybersecurity needs. And so that's good for me. Right out of the gate, I see where it can help me. So then down here, the next thing I do is I'm going through the table of contents. And part of the table of contents, what I look for is where are areas that I can see right here that I know I want to jump to. So one is I just want to look at the strategic goals, but cybersecurity enhancement. Let's say as I go through cybersecurity, digital modernization, those are my focuses. So I look at the table of contents and I want to go after that. The Department of Treasury is big. One of the agencies is the IRS, right? Obviously the biggest one in there, but I'm tracking on that. Okay, page 75. Let me make sure I get down there on 150 pages. If I do nothing else, let me jump to the parts that are most important to me out of the gate. So then as I continue down, and I'm not going to scroll through 150, I'm going to try to jump to each page. When I start coming down, there's all sorts of things that are highlighted that I want to track. So as the budget is defined, and this is an overview of probably 500 pages, 600 pages or something for the full budget request. But in here, they start telling me things that I want to track on. The budget request has $16 billion in base discretionary resources for domestic programs. And then as I come down through these bullets, I will start seeing the programs they talk about. And I want to keep myself from reading each one of them. I just want to get to the highlighted part, right? But here, it's $310 million set aside for IT business systems modernization. Well, that's my whole world, is building digital tools, software, et cetera, cloud activity. Okay, so that part's important to me. One thing that's really important as I go through is I'm looking for keywords, IRS business system modernization. I'm going to go search for that somewhere else. I'll look for it in the strategic plan. I'll look for it on the internet, on their website, so that I can find anything that they're talking about, because I know they got money. Now I just got to find out where is that money being spent. I'm going to keep scrolling down because I've got right here, this next one is strengthen enterprise cybersecurity. I already talked about it, right? But the budget increases the centralized funding, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second, but they're bringing cybersecurity together as an enterprise spend instead of being spent separately. Let me go to page 10. So this one gets fun. If you haven't read these type of documents, there are a lot of lines, but it's important to start coming through, right? You don't need to read this like a CPA or a CFO shop, right? You need to read this as a salesperson. And when I come down here, I'm looking at, there's IRS operations support, business systems modernization, and I can see the spending that's going on. And this is 310 million, 4 billion, right? So there's a lot of activities going on. Each one of these things are not the full story. They're all parts to the overall story. Let me come down to 13. So as I come down to page 13, I'm still seeing a lot of stuff, but there's adjustments that they're doing. And as you go through, you can find nuggets of information that tell you what offices are doing stuff or what they're doing. So here you can see 17 million plus, right? So they're increasing it, but it looks like zero FTEs. But in here, one of the things I noticed is that they're replacing servers that reach the end of life. Well, that's a problem, right? That tells me there's challenges. They want to modernize the other equipment and software that they have. And then I can see right here that there's a departmental office projects. I'm like, okay, let me write a note. Let me go find them. As you go through, you want to do that same thing for your activity. And I think that's it for that page. Let me go to 15. So as I come down into page 15 here, remember I said cyber is a big place where I want to be. 295 million, that's not thousand, right? And this idea, though, what I can see down here of what they're trying to do is they're trying to beef up what they're doing on cybersecurity. And in here, I can start seeing what's important to them. So recent history has demonstrated that the staffing level is insufficient. And for the federal government, staffing is hard, right? Right now, cybersecurity is this top tier type person that you want to get on your team. Well, it's hard for them to get them into the government because the pay is lower, frankly. And so trying to get them in there, they know they have the need. Well, maybe that's somewhere where I can go in or you can go in, right? And I can begin to look at they talk about other problems, right? The impact of current climate crisis, potentially cyber events on large scale. So they have this huge need. When I go in and I'm shaping a call plan, if you haven't heard me talk about that, I shape my questions when I go into a meeting, and I'm trying to get them to expand upon their problems. When they expand upon their problems, do they feel like they've got a handle on the solutions, or do they look for me and you to tell them? Here they're talking about financial support for the Office of Cybersecurity and Critical Infrastructure, right? Right there, it's an office. I don't know what that office is, but I'm going to go dive in, figure out who it is, see if I can get in there, meet with them, do an intro call, etc. But now I've written down an office that I need to find people. The next thing here is it's talking about the cyber infrastructure and plus and up $1 million. But here it's aligning cybersecurity under strategic goal 2. And what I notice is that, again, coming back to the strategic plan here, that the way they look at their budget is tied directly to their strategy. And I need to think that same way. And you might want to think about it too. Here, I'm pulling out a line. Treasury must strengthen its cybersecurity posture, leveraging the existing processes and tools, and strengthen its partnerships to protect the financial sector. So I'm looking at that. That's what they think they have to do. When I'm writing a proposal and I want it to be stronger, I need to have a solid understanding of what they're feeling. If I come down here, I'm looking at the investments that they have are going to enhance their ability to protect and to respond, right? Protect is make sure something doesn't happen. Respond is if something happens, how do we deal with it? But right here, those two are huge for me. I'm able to grab that information and decide what kind of questions can I ask? Who can I go talk to in there? What are some of the things they want? So I'm including that in the way that I'm communicating back to them. One more page down here. So this one's interesting too. So they have right here, facilities and office infrastructure. They've got a lot in here talking about the modernization of Irs buildings, right? And I'm able to learn that. So for you construction companies out there, right? I'm able to look in here. Here's this for Rafa, who's in our community, elevator malfunctions. But by not keeping up with maintenance and repair needs, the building system and infrastructure typically won't have full life cycle expectation. So when I look at that, that's a huge problem in the impact. So the problem is we're not doing the repairs that we need to. The impact is that the full life cycle that we expected, or lifetime of a building, an elevator, or whatever, we expected it to last 5 years or 20 years. But because we don't do the maintenance that we need to, it's going to come down. And so it actually is going to double the price or the cost to the government. Well, that helps me have that story that I'm telling the government, right? If I'm working on elevators somewhere else, I could sit there and say, hey, by keeping, I don't say what the problem is maybe to the IRS, but I say, hey, over in the Army, by keeping up with the maintenance and repair needs, we were able to extend the life by a year or whatever. And simple things like that, but I pull it out of the descriptions that they're talking about. So here there's a lot here as I scroll down. They were talking about dollars spent on small businesses. In here, you can see that the Treasury didn't meet their needs. But the interesting thing is they didn't meet the historical needs, right? Hub zones, so they did 2% or 2.2 instead of 3, but they didn't meet any subcontracting goals. And this is a big deal because they are committed to doing that. And so this tells me this is an agency trying to do better with small business performance. They just need help. And part of their challenge was a lack of overall responding by hub zones, a lack of sufficient firms available to use. When I see that small business firms available to use were missing, It's because they couldn't find HubZone firms. So if you're a HubZone firm, and I talk about this all the time, visibility is one of the most important things. You must be findable. And so I can look in here, and this could be a conversation I have with the small business professionals. Hey, how do I become more visible to you? Something for you to consider. So as I come down in this group, again, you can see all sorts of data that'll help me. But cybersecurity enhancement account, this is a huge thing, and I'm not going to be able to go into it a lot. But the big thing that I can see is that they're requesting $215 million, and that the CIO office is going to want like $12 million or something, or I can't remember where it was, but somewhere down here, the CIO office wants like $5 or $10 million to be able to manage all the cybersecurity activity going on. So I don't know anything about this cybersecurity enhancement account. Relatively new. It's like, okay, let me be tracking on this. Let me get in and have meetings with the CIO shop, whoever I can talk to, and begin to learn more about that. How do you guys feel about that? How's the communication going across headquarter Treasury to all the bureaus that are out there? And as I come down, I can see other things. Like here's one that talks about being compliant, right? So I can go in there and talk to them, not just about cybersecurity in general, but I might be able to say, hey, we've got experience being compliant with CISA or DoD regulations, et cetera, and we track on them. And then down here, I'm able to read something here where it talks about the department is centralizing cybersecurity initiative leadership and oversight to gain operational efficiencies, ensure transparency, and achieve enterprise-wide compliance for IT infrastructure. This is a huge deal for me understanding what are they trying to accomplish. And when I go in, people talk about what's your value proposition. Sometimes the only way you can really understand your value proposition, what your value is to that customer, is by understanding their needs, the challenges they face, or the goals they're trying to run into. And so when I see gain operational efficiencies, my natural assumption is that you are experiencing operational deficiencies. You must think something's not quite going right with the decentralized approach to cyber. So let me bring it in. Let me pause for 1 second, go back to this one-page view, because I know that I'm going through here really fast. As I go through these 150 pages on this budget summary, I'm looking through, seeing, yes, how much are they spending, but dollars are just the start. The other thing is I'm looking through trying to identify offices like the CIA and the CIO, obviously, and then the challenges, right? What I want you to think about as you go through a budget like this is which challenges or which goals, which programs can you support? And in these documents, they give you a lot of language to understand it and perhaps repeat it back when you're writing RFIs and proposal responses in there. So I want to pause for 1 second and switch over, because I noticed that I barely got through 1 of 5 rows of how much information I got highlighted in here. And anybody who wants this, by the way, if you want me to send you a copy of this one where I highlighted, you can download the Treasury's budget yourself. But if you want me to send you the one that I highlighted, a whole bunch of key things where you begin to see it, just send me a note in the chat that says Treasury budget, please, and I'll send it to you. But I'm going to keep trying to go through this in a second. But as I go through this document, it also references other documents that help me, right? So the strategic plan, that makes sense. It's one of my primary go-to documents in an agency. But then that document, or the Treasury budget, again, referenced another document. It actually referenced this one, the IRS Integrated Modernization Business Plan. It's from 2019, but it is still a foundational document, for a strategic document for the Treasury as they're implementing this in the IRS, et cetera. And so because I was looking at the IRS in the Treasury's budget, I'm able to see that they're talking about the CIO puts out an annual report. This tells us what happened in 2021. They're about to put out another one for 2022. And so these documents all align to each other. This third one, right? Capital investment plan, just really quickly showing you, it's got all these major programs within Treasury. These major investments is what they call them. These are the ones that are so big that the federal government tracks it for each agency. They say, tell us what your major IT investments are. And the reason they do this, if you don't know this, is because the government has lost billions, right? Whenever you hear about a small business having failed on a project, don't kill yourself. Get better, but don't kill yourself. Larges have lost billions on individual programs. And that's why this stuff is all managed now in this way, where the federal government is looking at all the major expenses across the group. But these documents, these 4 documents, all came out of this budget, right? And so this FY 2023 budget, as I cruise through it, I'm able to see some really helpful information. So let me keep coming down here for a second and show you where it breaks down into programs that are really helpful for me, right? So as I come down here, I can see that what's the trend going on. So yes, I can see dollars. We want to increase by $215 million what we're spending on certain programs. And so here are breakdowns of the program. They plan on doing 86 million more in zero trust architecture, right? Where can you fit into that mix? That's 86 million in there. And yes, they've got FTEs in there, but what can you do to bring the zero trust subject matter expertise that you have in there? And for me, it's that same thing. So here I look at implementation of the zero trust will be initially driven by the White House, right? The OMB document that says, here's what you must do on a minimum for zero trust. But then it talks about they'll proceed to transition to zero trust by planning projects on a pillar by pillar basis. And so when I hear that, I'm like, okay, what are those pillars? And this goes back to, I think in here, and I'm bouncing around really fast. It's not in here. It's in a different document. But I went and found the pillars so I can look at the pillars that they're doing. But they describe them here, right? But because I look at this, I go, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to their first phase. But how can I focus on the second phase? If I do data, how can I talk to them about zero trust as it relates to data? Right? You don't have to just be a cyber company to get in and support them on zero trust. Coming further down, here's security logging requirements. I can see that they want to increase their ability there by 23 million. Cloud enterprise investment, they're increasing it by 22 million. I can read all this. I'm not trying to read it to you at the moment, but by looking at this, because I'm in that whole world of IT and professional services, excuse me, I'm able to learn a lot more. I'm going to jump down in a second to the IRS, just tracking my time. But I wanted to show you here, like other cybersecurity priorities, $43 million more. And in here, these bullets talk about more priorities they have. If you're in the supply chain, which I know somebody in our community, a couple of you in our community are in the supply chain area. And if you're able to talk to the supply chain risk management that you're doing at the Marine Corps, for example, and bring it over those lessons learned to the Treasury, then that's good for at least a meeting. Right? But now you can see what their priority investments are. Where are they spending money? You don't have to wait for something to drop on SAM as an RFP or even an RFI. You can get in there early and start driving the conversation. And for me, when I highlight this, I look at this and go, okay, well, which office is going to be managing these dollars, right? And so somewhere in here, I can find it. I have to do more research, but the budget at least gets me thinking about supply chain risk management enhancements as an example. And then let me keep coming down because I got a whole bunch here. So there's all sorts of this bureau-specific investment, and they're going to be managing it. But right here, one of the things that I was highlighting this for, so right here, something like move over 60 FISMA systems to secure cloud services. So that's part of their goal, right? Is they're trying to move all these legacy systems into the cloud. If you're in that space, right, software development, cloud, cybersecurity data, somewhere in there, there's a play. Well, what are these systems, right? So for me, I look at this and say, well, I want to go put together a list of the systems. And many of the systems might be listed right here, right? I just have to do my homework to figure it out, but the budget gives me a good start to think about it. Okay, one more connected page here on 24. There it is. So here it was talking about the alignment. Again, it's coming back to this cybersecurity enterprise account. It's following the goals that come out of the strategic plan. In particular, they lay out the goals down below. So this gives me the guidance to go back and say, let me make sure I understand the strategic plan. Then it also helps me when I go in, I can say, hey, I understand the CEA is aligned to goal 2, goal 3, et cetera. And I'd like to explore that with you, right? I'm just preparing my questions for when I go in. So down here, as I start going through, there's little bitty things. You can tell this whole page, I just highlighted one line. And the reason I'm doing this is to showcase to you how important it is to read this to find what matters to you. So here, based on this assessment, they want to do a holistic modernization of building systems and infrastructure. This is for people in the construction space. If you're part of that whole green building or energy efficient buildings, things like that, There's all sorts of projects that are listed in here. I don't know if they're on this next page, actually. Yeah, so things like this include elevator overhauls, redesign, basement waterproofing, whatever. If you're in that construction space, well, here now, you can start seeing some of these projects and maybe get in, start asking questions before it hits that RFI. Remember, we're always trying to shift left in business development, and the budget allows me to do that. So I got 5 minutes left, and I want to jump down to find some of the other ones, like page. Let me jump down to page 75 because in here is IRS. So I was looking with you at the department level, but I can start coming down to individual bureaus or agencies or commands within a department. And so in this case, it's a agency. Whoop, hold on. I just want to point out, as I'm looking at all these numbers, and it's number soup, right, or number salad, but the part that matters to me is I can see shared services and support, information services. That's where I play. I can see that that's up by 39%, 29%, or 21%. These are good numbers, right? It's, if I scroll up a little bit, right here. So changes and adjustments. So it's a pretty significant jump. And as I come down into the IRS, I can look at their budget. It's 18% more than last year. This is a good sign that, especially on the professional services side, it's a good day to be playing in the IRS. Hold on, let's say it, 79, 80. Oh, sorry, moving a little too fast here. Okay, right here, just a couple of things really fast. You can see here's 389 million plus. The IRS has got a big mission to improve the way they're doing tax payer interaction services. And so a ton of money in there. And as you come down, you begin to see they also have technology operations. And so one part of it is the taxes. The other part's the tools and the infrastructure behind it to run those taxes. So as I go through this, and let me just pause here for a second because we're kind of wrapping up, and I think I want to just leave it as a message. So the thing I'm trying to get across to you on the Treasury budget in particular, and I can provide links to these documents and to the source stuff, but when I go through the Treasury's budget, I can see what they're spending, where they're going up. I can see which major programs they are spending, which major initiatives they have before them, or challenges they're trying to address when I look through that budget. And as I look through it, I'm able to then begin to identify offices or identify programs that make me go find the offices as a follow-on activity to looking at the budget. But and one other thing, as I go through the budget, I'm able to see documents that relate to it. I pointed to 4, but if you actually go through that budget, almost every page has notes on the bottom, and you can go to the very end of the overall budget, and you'll see links to other documents, references to other documents. Some of these documents are really old, 10 years old, let's say, but there's still the law of the land, if you will, related to what the IRS or the Treasury Department does. And so you want to go through that activity. I would encourage you to go through the Department of Treasury's budget in the next few days, right? This week. It shouldn't take you more than, let's say, a couple of days to really go through it. I did all that stuff you're seeing, reading all those documents, looking over. I do this pretty fast, right? A lot of years of experience. And so I did that in about 2 hours, I think, 2, maybe 3 hours of really understanding what's in there and highlighting the part. What I can see is I highlighted way too much for a 30-minute session, but I did not highlight enough for me as a business if I'm going to sell into the Treasury Department. And so go ahead and get that in there. If this stuff is making sense, what I'm showing you, if that's making sense, do me a favor and put budgets provide info. Budgets provide info. I hope it's easier to write than it is to say. It'll let me know that you're tracking on budgets. It's really important as you go forward. Even if you do nothing else, just download the budget, the summary budget. It tends to be about 100 pages or so, not the 500 pages. You can certainly get that, but that tends to be overwhelming. But get the summary of the budget that they have out there for your agency or the Treasury in particular, and just spend an hour scrolling. Don't overly read, but just scroll or search for your keywords like SharePoint or Elevator or Cyber, right? Search for your keywords and just see what it tells you, and watch how much your eyes are opened up compared to yesterday when maybe you weren't looking at the budget. Hopefully this all makes sense. If you appreciate what you're seeing, not only put thank you in the chat, but let other people know by giving it a thumbs up when you see the post that we put out on LinkedIn. We want to let people know that this information's out there and it's available to you. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.